All right, let's get this meeting started. This is the Measure J Commission meeting for March 21, 2019. And Ariana, I'll let you do roll call.
Commissioner Bernstein?
Here.
Vice Chair Craig?
Here.
Chair Gazan?
Here.
Commissioner Gray?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Lass?
Here.
Commissioner Robin?
Here.
Commissioner Soto?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Got some serious feedback.
We have everyone, which is great to see.
Yeah.
Okay, if we would all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept the agenda for today?
I will motion to accept the agenda. I will motion to accept the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? And do we have a motion to approve the minutes from our February 21st, 2019 meeting?
I have, I think, a correction. It said that Marcus was here at that meeting on the list, and I don't think Marcus Fuller was here at that meeting.
On what list?
On the minutes, where it puts also attended,
Oh, in the,
yeah, city engineer Fuller at the end.
yeah.
That needs to be corrected. He was not here. And other than that, the minutes are great. I'll let someone else make that.
Okay,
We move to approve it with that exception, that change.
I second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and this is time for public comment. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Measure J Commission on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. Although the Measure J Commission values anyone's comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Do we have anyone from the public? We do not. All right, welcome everyone. I just have one quick comment, and we've kind of strayed from doing this. As we get into discussion with any of the agenda, it would be best if we make sure that we kind of raise our hand when we want to speak so that you can be acknowledged and that we'll do it in order instead of just jumping in, because some people do kind of raise their hand, and we just want to make sure that we're courteous of everyone who wants to speak. So if we can just be cognizant of that. And that is it. Which moves us to the city manager's report. Welcome, Marcus. We're happy to see you today. Do you have anything for us, Marcus? Okay. Any questions from?
I don't have anything planned, thank you.
Any questions for Marcus?
I actually do. We're obviously going to start narrowing down the projects, and so I don't know that we're clear on exactly how much money we have, because we're still not sure which of the May 2018 projects that were recommended are actually officially approved. Marcus, at the meeting in December, we talked about the bollards, we talked about the bathrooms, we talked about the CAD RMS, but at that time, the city council had not officially approved those going forward. And so, do you know if they've been officially approved?
They have not, no. So there's a concern from council that although we've done our work to identify what we recommend for capital projects, there's a whole nother world of projects out there that perhaps should also be considered, you know, like the library and, you know, whatever it is. And so that's a challenge for us, because how do you come up with the list of everything? I mean, there are a lot of projects that we could all think about and come up with. So I've been challenged because I did, you know, on October, tried to revisit this and it really didn't go anywhere. So I don't know the number, but 2.6 million, I guess, is what we reported in October was left to be allocated.
265.
They had agreed with your recommendation for the extra 650,000 for the downtown park. But we did move forward. If you saw on the council agenda recently, it was awarded, right? The keyless entry, which we ended up funding just with general fund,
Oh, okay.
with our capital funds out of the general fund. 'Cause
And that's at just shy of $1 million?
no, that's the just phase one. So we 950,000 would include expanding the keyless entry system to the other fire stations. So we just bid and awarded phase one, which includes the city hall, the police station, not fire station 2, city yard.
The city yard, fire station.
Yeah, fire station 2. Anyway. Phase 2 would include the other fire stations and the animal shelter.
Okay.
And that's another, we guess, 450,000. So as it turns out, the system's actually starting to fail, so we're glad that we awarded the contract. So you can scratch keyless entry, or at least reduce it, but my guess is we'll probably, if we end up expanding that, take it out of capital funds, general funds, but
So we should put 475 for that, just take it out completely?
you could show 475 for that. I mean, it's still a project that needs to be funded at some point.
But not maybe as in a top 5 priority?
Not at this point, no. But the top priority for us was phase one.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And I do want to mention a project that's been listed that I want on the record, given the flooding that we've had recently. You know, we identified Storm Drain Line 3, which is a storm drain system up on Sunrise and San Rafael. It would have extended through the Serena Park neighborhood. That was, as you might remember, due to a resident that had requested it. I really don't, again, and I said this then, recommend. It wasn't my intent that got listed as a staff recommendation. I think there was some confusion. There's actually a line 20, which is my next critical storm drain that I'd like for us to start tracking. And so I think in updated, it's not on here. So I just want you to not be confused when you see updated project lists. Line 3 will say line, I think it's 20. This would extend a storm drain from El Cielo in Ramon to Farrell. So if you've ever driven Sunrise and Farrell, no, yes,
Parallel.
it's a river, and so there's already a storm drain that runs up El Cielo and dumps to the creek. In my mind, I've seen that as the next critical one. We've identified it with a flood control district, but they've basically put all their money into Storm Drain Line 41, which deals with the flooding over there by Safari Mobile Home Park and Rimrock, and ties into the stuff they've done in Cathedral City, and finally gets rid of the whole flood zone that affects all those condos down there. That's been our top priority for like 15 years, and so they're finally wrapping that project up. They're paying for that, but it sucks up all the tax increment they accrue for projects in our area, which means it's left to the city to fund it, and we only get, we charge us a nominal drainage fee on building permits. So with each building permit, that's not each, but like when you build a house, it's a vacant lot, you have to pay a certain drainage fee, and it doesn't amount to much. Like I think we have $1 million in drainage fees accumulated, which won't won't do much.
No. I think the one up north was 5 million, wasn't it? Was it San Rafael?
Right.
5 million?
Yes, so I remember when I was still here before I went to Rialto, one of the things I did when we were trying to put together the list of everything, I did put together a whole bunch of requests for all these main storm drain projects. You know, they're not sexy, nobody sees them, but when you need them, you want them. So, I mean, that's something I would just add to the list.
Do you have an idea how much money we might need? to
10
fund-
million for storm drain line, for line 20, I'm gonna say it's only a mile, no, it's a half mile. Yeah, from El Cielo to Farrell is a half mile, but it's like literally a 10 by 10 box culvert underground. It's like a huge storm drain. And so it's,
This is what would run under Ramon then?
this would extend under Ramon, yeah.
And so that water that
And then it
collects
would-
at Farrell and
Yeah, so there'd be catch basins and
Ramon.
everything at the intersection that would
so
send
it
it
would move
underground.
down to El Cielo and then head towards
Taquas Creek,
Tuckwoods Creek.
yeah.
And what was the?
What was the number again?
Yeah, the amount.
It's 10 million is just a
That's what I thought you
placeholder.
said,
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Wow. Okay.
And when you say 10 million, Marcus?
Oh, you did, okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Just for clarification, on the latest list you guys, the commission
is
received
gone.
on February 13th, we did remove line 3. So
Okay,
that-
I'm
we
sorry.
we could start putting in line 20.
The Parks and Rec LED, is that the one you removed? I'm sorry.
So, sorry, Marcus made mention of the line 3 line that storm drain line that we wanted removed. But from the latest list for February 13th, we had removed that storm drain line.
Oh, I see.
So for you commissioners who can't find the document they're referring to, it's in your February tab. It's a memo to Jim Gazan, February 13th. So I see some puzzled faces while they were talking, so.
Commissioner Craig?
Marcus, when you say 10 million, that's just an estimate, right?
Yes,
It could be.
33,720. Oh, you were here.
it could be more, but I'm shooting high.
Okay, you are shooting high?
Yes.
Okay,
We appreciate that.
yes, we do.
Any other questions for Marcus?
Well, then, yeah, then the bottom line is, do we put the 2650 back into the 1920 then? That is not being spent, that we had put in?
Right, so you've got the 2.6 million that hasn't been allocated yet, that's in the current budget, plus whatever the latest,
8.4.
it's 8.4?
Yeah, look at, yeah, when you put up 19 and 20.
Where's the latest?
Yeah. So, oh, no, it's not, it's 8174, I promise, 81745, so then we would add 2.6, we'd add 2.6.
Oh, I see, so it's 5.65 million is what you have to budget.
Well, we have the 2.524
Sure.
as well.
Yeah.
So you add those two together, right?
Mhm.
And so that comes to 8174,
Correct.
but that 2.650 is not included in that 8174, correct?
No, the 2.5 is the same number I was talking about, it's just, obviously, there's a difference.
Okay, so the 8174 includes the money
Yes,
that was not spent that we recommended in May.
correct,
Okay, so that's our total
Yes.
budget. Okay, that's all the clarification I needed.
okay.
Thanks.
And for mine and others' clarification, the 8.1 is carryover from last year? Or we're,
It's 2.5 is the carryover from.
right, I see the 2.5.
And then the
5.6
5650 next to it,
Oh, okay.
1920.
So you're
You add
saying
those
that's
two together.
total?
You add those two
Okay,
together
gotcha,
and get the total budget.
gotcha.
Okay,
And that's what we have to allocate then towards this list?
for our recommendation in May, correct.
Okay. And I know that's something we need to look at in preparation for May. So I guess for next month, we definitely want an updated maybe list, Joel, of those priorities, and then we can discuss again priorities based on staff recommendation from last year, which a lot of it hasn't been approved. relook and see what, obviously the key list is not maybe something we need to look at, so that takes 475 off the table.
Well, we can consider it.
Right, but it's reduced and it doesn't seem to be as high a priority as maybe some other things that. And
But the CAD RMS, I just want to be sure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'll raise my hand.
Go ahead.
The CAD RMS, the bollards, and the park restroom renovation repairs remain under unfunded capital projects to be considered for 2019 and 2020, correct? Yes. Okay.
Right, and we want to, they're still a priority for us. We want to make sure it's still a priority for staff with any other additions. But yeah, we might just end up kind of presenting a lot of what we presented last year. For all intents and purposes. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Marcus? All right, we'll move on to, we're skipping over finance, and we'll move on to staff report. And projects.
So for the project update, I wanted to kind of focus in on the two big projects that we're working on, funded by Measure J, which is the police station and the fire station. The fire station, we're working with the contractor to get that complete. We're hoping to get it complete, or substantially complete by May 7th, approximately the first 2 weeks in May. So the fire department is pretty excited about moving into that facility. It was a historical designated building, so there's a lot of work that needed to be done. I don't think we've ever talked about the building itself, but it was, there was lots of wood that was exposed with a lot of wood rot, termite rot. So there's a lot of, once the contractor started digging into that building, they really found some issues that needed to be addressed. So they were actually up to the challenge and worked well to meet the schedule. As with any construction project, some of the schedules slip a little bit, and we're working with them to try to keep it within budget and on schedule. Approximately this year, we spent about 1.9 million on fire station number 4.
On what was that?
Fire station number 4,
fire
right?
Station
It's
number
a
4.
rehab of an existing historical building and then an expansion.
Is that the one on Laverne?
That is the one on Laverne, yes.
Yeah. When is that proposed to be complete?
Well, right now, as I was saying earlier, we're the first 2 weeks in May would be.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood that. I thought you were talking about the police department.
No, I
'Cause know
started with the
that's
fire
been-
station, yeah.
Okay, because I know the police department's been ongoing and that's been,
Right,
Kinda delayed.
I'll,
okay. So this is the fire station on Laverne, okay,
this
thanks.
is, yeah.
And you said we've spent how much this year on the fire station?
Currently, the expenditures as of 3/12 for fiscal year 2018-19, we're about 1.9 million.
9, okay.
Right, we
Thank
budgeted 1.9109, I'm sorry, 1.09.
Okay, thank you.
And for the newbies on the council, is that the total expenditure, or has there been money allocated in previous years?
Yeah, it's funded with general funds and Measure J. It was multi-years. The contract was 4.2.
It was
4.2.
Right.
I don't remember the number. It's 4 million something.
And of that, how much was Measure J?
Oh, jeez.
It's
Pop quiz.
1.947 million of Measure J funds.
Okay.
And of that, we spent 1.094. So we're almost at the finish line, and the money shows it.
Looks good.
And the police station, that's a different story. It has been in the news a little bit.
Excited, thinking, yes, we're almost to that finish line.
No, we've run into some challenges with the contractor. City had to take some action. We're right now working with the surety to see, how we can, I guess, resolve the issues that we have. We're hoping to come into a conclusion with the surety to be able to continue the project. Right now, there were 4 phases or 4 different sections within the police department that were being worked on. 2 of them were occupied by the police. They needed to get in there, so we were able to occupy, but there's still some work that needs to be done. And 2 other spaces, well, actually, I'll take that back. 3 spaces were occupied by the police station. The 3rd space has not been occupied, which is the records and lobby, which is unfortunately their main entrance. But that one is on hold, and as soon as we resolve the issues with the surety, we're going to continue working on the project. And
Commissioner Craig?
I have a question. I was over there today, and I went into records, which is working out of one little room, which was the detective bureau. And it sort of looks like everything looks like nobody's working at all. It's all abandoned, looking when you walk through the building. And that, is there real plans for?
The contractor by council was
fired.
Was essentially, they were removed from their obligation of constructing the project. And right now we're in a phase where we're trying to work with the surety who holds the bonds for the project to remedy the situation. So there is no activity going on at the police station currently.
Wow, thank you.
And we've actually spent the original budget that we had was approximately 2.4 million of Measure J funds for that project, and right now we're in this year up into the situation we were at expenditures of about 9.4 million, 946,000. Sorry, little slip up. Sorry. Yeah, and on the we had a pre-con today on these.
So the other big projects that were funded by Measure J was.
Sorry, question, please.
Sorry.
Just a mental coordination question. When you use the phrasing the police department project.
Robin, if you can turn your mic on.
Here we go. I'm pressing without effect. When you use the phrasing the police department project, and there are 3 line items here, is that a descriptor that you're using that combines the 3 as one, or are they really 3 independent projects?
The 3 descriptors are for one project.
And all 3 are wrapped up in the. Thanks. And all 3 project lines are combined under the surety contractor replacement issue. Is that right? Or are those separate?
Those
contracts?
are all part of the project, so they would be involved in the same.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
So moving on to the Indian Canyon Corridor project that we got a grant from CVAG, where we put up, $2 million of Measure J funds in order to get $6 million in grant funding from CVAG. So Indian Canyon Corridor, Palm Canyon Corridor, I think even we reported the last couple of meetings that Indian Canyon has started. We did the potholing for the traffic signal pole investigation. The poles are scheduled to come in June. And so we would expect the contractor to start mobilizing sometime in May ahead of the pole installation. So you're going to see some activity on the Indian Canyon two-way probably starting mid to late May. With regard to the other project, which is on Palm Canyon, as well as it goes around the curve and then East Palm Canyon, we just had our pre-construction meeting with the contractor today. They will start their pothole investigation so that we can order the long lead items, which is the traffic signal poles. So they're gonna, after discussing, availability of their crew is available middle of April, which we have Coachella, the 2 weekends of Coachella, and the weekend of Stagecoach. On Palm Canyon, as you know, the sidewalks are packed. Everybody felt it would be safer for the contractor because they don't want to work amongst that big crowd either. So you probably see the last week of April, you're going to see some activity of them, doing some exploratory holes in the sidewalks and roadways along Palm Canyon. And then you're going to, just like the other project, we're going to order the poles and wait. So that's kind of the update.
Commissioner Bernstein.
So for these two projects, what's the for Indian Canyon specifically, what's the estimated time frame for completion?
The contractor, I believe, has 300 days to complete the project. But the situation is with the actual ordering of the poles, there's only 2 manufacturers in all the United States to actually deliver those poles. So once we get or we find out what the dimensions of the poles will be, or we essentially go pothole to figure out if there's any conflicts. Once we're clear, we order those poles. Then it takes about 40 weeks to get those poles.
Commissioner Gray.
Yeah, can you explain the Palm Canyon corridor, exactly where that is you're talking? What, between where and where?
Palm Canyon would be from Ramon all the way up to Tamarisk, I believe, or was it to Chiva? No, it goes further north. Yeah, yeah. And that's just at the signalized intersections. For East Palm Canyon, there's a part that goes along the curve all the way to Deep Well. So.
And that's for future pedestrian crossing?
That would be kind of like the flashing
right, like we have in Uptown.
On North.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the downtown area, it's just those, the new way of the diagonal crosswalk.
Correct.
Like an all direction.
Correct.
Okay. And as far as Indian Canyon, once that's two-way, this is not including anything as far as traffic circle down by near Sunny Dunes. This is just, they're going to have to funnel.
No. You can add that to the list.
I know. So right now, it's just going to turn into a big traffic jam on Ramon then, is kind of how it's going to get fed. Okay. Yeah.
All right, while we're on Indian Canyon, we have the roundabout that on our unfunded capital projects is $1 million, and then when you look at the descriptor, it's $2 million. And there was also the original issue of fire trucks being able to do that turn. Has that been solved?
So we haven't started the design of that roundabout yet. Most roundabouts are designed to facilitate turning movements of bigger trucks, including fire trucks. So once we start the design, or when we get to that point, we wouldn't put a traffic circle that wouldn't allow for turning movements or to allow those bigger trucks to use it.
Yeah. So when we applied for the grants, we thought the really rough engineering estimate, it would be about $1 million to do that. As they started to put more eyes on it, scope creep, all that kind of thing, it ballooned to $2 million. Once we knew we didn't have that kind of money, we kind of put the design on hold, and we didn't further flesh it out. But there are still things that we need to flesh out with that design. So that's kind of the status of it now.
So, I mean, this doesn't really affect Measure J, but obviously the Indian two-way has been approved by council. I just see like a total traffic nightmare once this is converted and we're not addressing the roundabout, and that's something that's going to linger out there wherever that 2 million is going to come from. And I don't know how long it's going to be before we get that, that roundabout. I don't know. I just feel like this is not well planned, and again, this is not a Measure J issue. It's kind of a citizen issue, but I just see everyone screaming about this once that happens, and how it's just going to be a nightmare on Ramon. I don't know if that little section next to Bank of America, if that will remain one way, or if that becomes
It
two-way
is.
as well?
So
So that
the-
remains one way, and
the-
you're forced to either turn right or left at Ramon, correct?
No,
No, it's not at Ramon, it's after Ramon.
no, it's at Camino Parcelas, so it's at the Sun Center.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where
Well,
the,
that was my question. So next to the Bank of America, it will continue to be two-way.
yes.
On Indian
So
Yeah.
once you get Indian Canyon, correct. So then when you get to the Sun Center, it's kind of make,
Right, so
There
it's
you make the
added
choice.
a fifth phase to that complicated traffic signal, and it will function, it'll be confusing, and that's why we wanna do a traffic circle there. And
well,
I
and
would
that
suggest
may
we
be a
add
little
that
better
to our-
than,
It's on the list? Okay.
okay. And that may be, well, it will be interesting.
Jim?
Yeah.
You wondered where the 2 million will come from? You know my position on a two-way there. I suggest Measure J, this is not a Measure J issue. If the council wants a two-way, let them find the money.
This is their money.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Anything else from?
No, that concludes our report.
Okay. Any,
I will give an update, because I've been kind of handling the downtown park. I'm trying to hand it off, but the construction drawings are in final plan check. They've been through a couple rounds with our building department. So those plans are expected to be complete in the next few weeks. And so my hope is to bring the formality of the final approval and authorization to bid to council on their second meeting in April. So we're basically on schedule. So Rios's team has really done a great job getting that project completed and designed. So the intent would be to bid it during the summer and hopefully be under construction towards the end of the year. So
so if it's dramatically over budget, is there any back to the drawing board or council? Do you think they're just going to approve as is?
the word I have right now is their construction estimate is still in the realm of where they've been saying, you know,
Okay.
the 7 million with the additional extras, but, you know, we'll see. It's hard to say with the current economy and limited contractors what kind of pricing we'll get.
And have they presented any kind of maintenance costs that we'll see annually? I know that waterfall to me is a major concern. And I'm
Which is
afraid
why-
that could become a Measure J line item.
Well,
that-
and it is, so that's why you see the downtown property maintenance and other expenses continues every year. And so in the 1920 budget, you see 550,000. So that was purposeful because we knew as we developed the downtown project, we wanted to make sure we had funding to maintain all the new streets and landscaping and what have you,
Downtown
and
property
this would
maintenance.
also include, and we're starting to incur costs against that account, you know, for maintaining and sweeping the downtown garage and other, you know, new elevators that we now own, all sorts of expenses, so, but you're right, so it's likely that that budget may need to increase over time based on whatever it's gonna cost. I don't know what it's gonna cost. What will happen is we'll have to start getting proposals from some vendors that do that kind of maintenance on that complicated system. And it could be 100,000 a year just to maintain the pool equipment, which is what it is.
Right, and
For
that-
that kind of
and I-
complicated system, and then, you know, we'll have a contractor. We have 3 landscape contractors, and we would add that to their contract, so.
And is that negotiable at this point? Build the fountain or not build the fountain, or if we are too deep in the rabbit hole on this?
I think
Is that
the
something that
design
the
has been
public could come-
approved, so I think what will happen is if, you know, the bids come in and it's $12 million or whatever. And
No,
we're gonna have
obviously, but I think the public is not aware of some of these, you know, the joke around the city is the fountain in Francis Stevens Park, you know, how that just constantly needs maintenance and it needs paint. And it's just one of those things that becomes a big line item for the city. This waterfall seems to be, potentially could be even a bigger line item. And, you know, I don't know that that's very prudent as far as, you know, if this park's already somewhat over budget and now we're adding an element to it that's going to take out a Measure J, and it could be, like you said, it possibly could be as high as 100,000. There's misters and foggers and a lot of things going on there. That's a concern for me, and I just think the public is going to raise an eyebrow to that.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's something that can be brought up still to council or, you know, as they review the budget. I don't know. Senator Craig? Or Commissioner Craig?
I like that, thank you.
I watch too much news.
That's a nice ring, thank you. I'm going by memory because Commissioner Gossett and I are the representatives for the Measure J for Parks and Recreation Group, and there hasn't been a meeting in probably 5 months. And at the last meeting when this waterfall discussion came up, we discussed about the fact that I remember the contract that the city had to get on the fountain and on Alejo, that I think the last company said, who had done the maintenance on the Bellagio, said they would only take it if they had a 5-year contract because it was continually having a problem. And the way I understood it was when they got all the bids on all of it and it came back to the next meeting, which there hasn't been, we would hear what the cost would be for maintenance and that to decide whether or not it was going to go ahead with that program. But there hasn't been a meeting. I said 5 months, you're saying it's closer to?
Last time that we met was in June. And yeah, my impression was we were still investigating. They brought in an expert.
That's what I thought.
That dealt with these kind of pump systems and filtration systems because our water's so hard here. And so that was a concern from the group. And these were a lot of commissions that are brought together as a subcommittee. And yeah, it was my impression that that was still, could be one of the, an item for discussion as far as the actual final plan to the park. And it just seems like we've gone forward with the design, they're gonna present it. And that's really where my line of questioning was, is if this is something that at least the public has a chance to address to council before they vote on those funds and, you know, put the stamp on the actual design. Do we look at that one single element of the park and say, you know, maybe this needs to be altered?
My understanding was that the committee had approved the design, that the only elements at the last meeting that were subject to further review were the shade canopies. I'm trying to remember. And
Yeah,
there's
that was one.
another item, but not the core design element of the water feature. So we went to council, I believe, in September. I don't know the date, but I brought the item to council, and council essentially approved the design development drawings, the 100% design development drawings, and we've moved into the construction drawings.
Okay.
I think your comments are on if we end up getting bids that are excessively high.
Then we can maybe have that chance to revisit it. And then it's not that I'm totally against it, it's just a concern. And with talking to other people around the city, they're a little concerned. You know, is this gonna become one of those things that just is a huge ticket item for the city that falls on everyone's books that we've gotta fix this? And, you know, how necessary is that element? Commissioner Gray, did you have a comment, or, nope? Commissioner Soto, go ahead.
I had a question about the Indian Canyon and Palm Canyon. You mentioned Indian Canyon was approximate 300 days for completion. What's the window for Palm Canyon?
I don't remember. I'd have to go check it out, but I can follow up and look into that. But it's the part on Palm Canyon is very difficult, and then the portion on East Palm Canyon is actually relatively easy. So I think and then since Palm Canyon is a one-way street, it does make it slightly easier to construct. Whereas Indian Canyon, we're actually flipping the direction of traffic. So that's a little bit more time to take. So I would say it's less than 300 working days, but I don't have the ballpark even to give you. Sorry.
And the challenge we have is these long lead items on these poles, but then once the poles come in, the contractor wants to start working. And of course, that's usually during our peak season. So it's just heads up, it's challenging to try to put it all together so that we're working between, May and October. It's just not possible. I mean, as it is with the Indian two-way, it's very likely they're going to be still working and wrapping it up in December. It just depends on how long it takes them. I mean, we had to give them enough time to really do the project with the amount of work that's going on, and we're still in our head trying to figure out how they're going to actually flip the switch and make it two-way. And the only way to do it really is to make all of those maybe go block by block, but they're probably going to be, the signals will be just always stopped. So traffic will be a nightmare during construction, but it's a difficult project to implement. Once it's implemented, we should see the benefits of having it be two-way traffic.
I have
Sure. Commissioner
on the
Johnson.
downtown park, the Andes, the Hyatt, is that now clear that $2 million for the parking is going to go to the downtown park, or has that not been?
No, that was my recommendation. We'll need to award a contract, maybe in September. So we'll need to find the funds somewhere for that. The Dream Hotel still owes us the $2.1 million left on their parking fee. So and they have a requirement to pay that. So the idea was to offset that payment. So that $2 million that's plugged for this current fiscal year would be freed up, but we're not releasing it until the other funds are in hand, and then we know that we've made that payment. So,
Any other questions? Okay.
Are you going to discuss the process of how to start narrowing these things down?
I can, yeah. Is that,
I would think that we'd want to do that in the projects update.
yeah, let's do that.
Can I ask?
You know, before we, Commissioner Craig, go ahead.
No, I need to leave early, and I won't
Okay.
be able to discuss the picnic. That was
Okay.
all. Sorry.
Just real quickly, before we move on to new business,
Yeah, that's what I meant.
well, I'm looking at the wrong agenda.
Old business is fine.
Old business, yes. I wanted to just quickly open a discussion on how we will look at these projects. And again, a lot of it is with staff recommendation as far as what we'll recommend to council. And I'm willing to open that up for discussion, although we don't have the complete list. I want for next month, Joel, if you can get us that list that has the drainage, and then basically the list of projects that you see that are, you can list several of them. And then last year we kind of, as a group, we voted on different projects, and we actually did it, I think, via email, if I
Yeah.
recall.
Yeah, how the process works, and staff does the same thing, but separately from us, is we'll have the full list, there'll be descriptors on almost everything, and then we will all go home individually and pick our top 5. What are the most important, what do we think should be our top priorities? We then send those to Ariana, she tabulates them. She brings them to the next meeting, staff tells us what their top 5 are. Ariana says this is the top 5 that we decided on, and then we discuss it, because we can still change it. It's just, that's how we do it. And then we'll have a surprise, some project that's not on the list, and we'll figure that out when it happens. But it happens every year, so The CAD
That's
RMS.
as we need.
The CAD RMS we got a week before we presented to the city council, so just don't be shocked if we've made a decision and we're feeling great about it, and we've sent it in to city council, and they go, did we tell you about it? So, but that's normally how we do it. It seems to work very well. And you can reach out to Joel or Don or Marcus even, he's really good. If you have questions about projects, they'll, like you said, you'll have descriptors, but if there's more detail that you need or want, you can either Google it or you can call them, and they're really good about answering your questions and stuff like that, so.
The list is gonna look very similar to what we provided February 13th. The list is
Just a few minor things.
Right, and then at the bottom, we have all the descriptors. So it's not gonna look very different other than any new things that we can add between now and
Yeah.
then. So, and we'll give it to Ariana to distribute to everyone.
Commissioner Bernstein.
So the question is, to what extent could we recommend funding part of some project as opposed to all of it? You know, some of these has potential other sources of funding, and we may not want to give all from Measure J.
And are you referring to even projects that are way out of our budget?
Yes.
As far as the money allocated? You know, we dealt with that last year, and correct me if I'm wrong. You know, we can look really at anything. If you want to pick the downtown theater, that's, 25 million or whatever, you can choose it. And we know too that a lot of that money it could be a portion. It could be something that just gets it started, whether it's some engineering test. We know that these projects are multi-year and are way out there. So we can, I guess you can use your discretion. You can look, last year how we kind of came to the 5 was being sensitive to what money we had available, for the most part, if I recall. And then a lot of it was input from staff. What do you guys see? How the city's working. Is this keyless entry thing a hot issue? Apparently it is, because half of the properties now are starting to nosedive. How important were the bullards? And that was a big deal for downtown. So, but if there's something that's passionate, and we know the library is a very passionate project as well, but it's a lot of money. But we can definitely address it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the library is a good example because they don't seem to have there's not a full plan yet.
Exactly, right. So all we're doing is we're just saying money could be spent on it if something moves forward. And we're gonna see it probably on the books for the next few years, just like we have with some of this.
Thank you.
You bet. Commissioner Gray.
Yeah, obviously, this is an important topic, but since we aren't doing any of that prioritizing today, I think we can have all of these questions when we do that next month. So I'd kind of like to just kind of move with our agenda rather than getting bogged down into the process today, because that's really not what we're doing today.
Well, I think it's important that the new people have an idea of what the process.
Well, we can
the
discuss that when
process
we're doing it.
is. So that's why we brought that up. And just on back of what Jim just said is, yes, we really listen to staff, and we're usually very, very close, but we're never identical. We always have our certain things, like the park restrooms we put on as our top priority every year. Staff never puts it in their top 5 priority ever. And so it's just one of those things. So don't feel obligated. I mean, absolutely we listen to staff, and they're great, and we enjoy working with you. But we don't always agree 100%. And so feel comfortable that if there's something that you really believe in, that you think that the community could benefit from, then bring it out there. I mean, everybody, that's why there's 9 of us to do that. And an example of what Jim also was talking about in the police department CAD, we only proposed $2 million. The total budget was $2,230,000, but there was a piece that didn't have to be done right away, and because of budget constraints. So that would be an example. And then the other one was, like you said, with the library. If we want to spend $5 million of our, $8 million budget on that, we can do that. It's just up to us as the commission to make that decision.
Okay. Any other? So let's move on to some old business, and I'm going to hand it over to Commissioner Craig. We want to discuss the 1 PS picnic that's coming up this Saturday. And if we can first focus on the logistics and who's going to be there when and the hours, and then we can move on to the communications piece of that as well.
Well, I wanted to tell everybody, the tent is done, everything has been finished. Ariana was terrific. She and I went over to the city yard 3 days ago, and they found 4 Measure J signs covered in mud. I took them home, I washed them, cleaned them. They look perfect.
You did the dirty work.
Literally.
Literally.
So we have the signage. The tent looks great with Measure J. I opened it, checked everything yesterday with it. Have a cover for the table. We have the materials. Everybody has the badges. It's from 11 to 2. If everybody who can be there at 10-ish to help set everything up, so we're up and ready and designed and put together where we need to be. And we'll be there until 2 o'clock. And again, as many who can stay and be there, just, there's no commitment of saying, I'll be there at 11, I'll 10. I'm just saying, when you can be there, be there. It'll help. As long as we have a couple of people each time to be sitting at the tables. We have 4 chairs. So we have all the equipment, and we're way under what we were given $2,000 in, correct? And we haven't spent $1,000. Nowhere near that. So everything is good. Am I missing anything?
So you would rather us just show up at any time rather than giving us specific 1-hour slots? Because I think it would be easier for me if I knew I'm committed from 12 to 1, because I'm going to be there with my husband, and so it would. I just think there's 9 of us, unless you want to stay there the whole time.
No.
But it would be. I just think it would be easier if somebody.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Could you send an email out to us and just ask us all to just put down what times we could be there?
And if we can kind of share idea, I know that I can be there at 10. Ideally, I would like to be probably out of there by 12:30 because I have to go to Los Angeles that day. So.
I can do the same time, but I have to leave.
You have to leave early. Is there anyone that's willing to stay till 2 o'clock?
I can stay noon to 2,
Okay.
almost.
I can do the 10 to 12.
Anyone else planning on
Yeah, no,
participation?
I can be there anytime.
Okay. Maybe if you guys can skew more towards the later end of it, we'll have a fair amount of us on the front end.
Well, it's easy to come over for the setup too, because I'll have
Okay.
easels and
Oh, okay,
everything to
great.
set that up. So,
Okay.
and then I can just wander off.
Yeah, as long
and
as we
wander
have
back.
at least 2 people left from 1 to 2, I'm sure it's gonna kind of,
Yeah, I can
Peter out
be
a
there,
little.
like, say, from 11 to 1.
Who's taking it down?
I'm writing it down right now.
Who's taking down the tent?
Oh, well, I had told Ariana that I have to leave to be at an event, so.
We need a brave volunteer to take it with them.
No, I can take it down. It's no big deal.
Can you?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay,
Thank
great.
Dan.
Thank you very much,
That
Dan.
solves that.
Awesome, yeah, that was what I was concerned with.
Almost the end, I have to go to LA too.
I can take the late shift.
Thank you, Brian.
I should be able to be there till 1:45.
Okay.
Okay. We can all ride to LA together.
So I think that's everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
it
is.
covers
And
everybody.
You were 10 to 12?
Naomi was 10. Great.
Okay.
That's all right.
Long date.
That's okay. You were there last year, I think, weren't you?
Yes, he was.
Yes, you were, so you get a break.
Yes.
So, and I wasn't, so
Oh, that's
it's
great,
my turn.
everybody. That's great.
Great.
And Joel, you're there the whole time, right?
Sorry?
You're there the whole time? Thank you. I just was checking. Thank you, Don.
Joel's actually making hamburgers.
Yeah, I gotta do double duty with 2 booths, so. All right, great.
Great.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Dan.
In going through this process, and Ariana was great help. Thank you very much. In putting these things together and a couple of other things, some questions occurred to me, and maybe you can clarify it. Maybe staff members know. I note that there is actually a communications budget. I think this past year, or for this current fiscal year, it's $9,789 or something to that effect. And there's been a budget, as far as I can tell, going back, quite a few years that hasn't been spent. So I guess it gives me a couple of questions. Is there any designation of what that budget is meant to be for, or is it just kind of a general label? And what's the procedure for spending it? I mean, for example, even just copying these things, Amy felt the need to go to the city manager to find out if that was okay. And I'm going, how does this work?
Thank you.
The commission itself does not have a communications budget or marketing or for
So what's
any
Department
promotional.
1396 then?
I will,
Or that's just for downtown maintenance?
That is a downtown maintenance, yes.
is that the department? I would have to look up what department this is, but it's not Measure J. That's probably more of a city department,
Yeah, yeah.
not commission.
So I guess my next question then is, should we have one? I know that was discussed very early on, and it kind of dropped, I heard, from a commissioner that's no longer here. But the idea that we don't have any budget at all seems a little odd to me.
Jim?
Yeah.
I mean, the last meeting here, we did discuss the need for more marketing and communications. And I think everyone sort of agreed that there should be. There may be differences in how we do it or what exactly we do, but it seems like in order to do that, there has to be some kind of budget or resource for it, right?
Yeah, definitely. And was that when we said it would be nice for Marcus to be here for that discussion? Because, that was kind of the main, and we probably are kind of moving on to 5B, because the communication subcommittee, I believe you guys did meet, correct? So, and is this what kind of came out of some of that? I'm sure you have more to report, but this is one of the items. And I know that we had talked too, that we wanted to kind of push us forward. If you haven't seen those giant J signs, they'll be at the picnic, and we wanted to see what it would cost to get more of those printed and see those, on active projects around the city, as opposed to a tiny little medallion in the corner of the description of the project. It would be nice to get, and I don't think they're hugely expensive, but yeah, we were kind of left with, we don't know where that budget comes from. So I don't know, again, out of your subcommittee meeting, if anything was discussed.
Well, to clarify, when Dan said he had seen this Measure J communication item, 1396, I thought, I've never heard of a budget for our communication. So I would like to know what that is, if it's not our communication budget. So
That's a general fund department number, internal, not for commission.
But then, okay, so why does it say Measure J?
I'm gonna try to find out.
And are you looking at something that's from fiscal 2012 to 13?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
oh, it does run every year?
Mr. Chairman, I think it comes under the general heading of downtown maintenance and other expense.
Right.
But it does raise the question, if we're funding this for downtown promotion and we can't have a budget for communicating as a commission, that strikes me as a little odd.
Yeah, Commissioner Soto?
And just to clarify, and feel free to clarify if I'm kind of misinterpreting this, but I think also the idea was that communication is part of community engagement, right? And so having resources and materials to engage with the community, and similarly how we're doing this weekend with the picnic, but other community events or convenings. So, I'm definitely very curious about this as well.
Can we take it and research it among staff and maybe work with the finance department to see how it is that you obtained first the $2,000 that you received for the tent, for the actual pop-up, and then see if there's another way to get money for. We don't know that answer right now, but we can definitely research it for you.
I've already explained how we obtain these funds for these items. So they're not Measure J funds. No.
So
One-
let me ask, there was $2,000 and about 1,000 has been spent. Does that leave some funds for making the poster boards for the picnic that we talked about?
We could probably use that. I just don't know the cost of the signs.
Well, and the
Okay.
poster boards we're good for that, right? I mean, Sid cleaned off the ones. I mean,
Yeah.
as far as the picnic, are we covered?
We're talking these.
These.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that.
Mr. Chairman, you know what, I'm happy to do that. Ariana's been great, she's got them all printed out, I'll take them to FedEx, we'll mount them on some boards, it's $5 a piece, it's no big deal. But
Great.
going forward, I just
Yeah.
think we should have a method. I don't know about the other new members, but, you know, when I interviewed with the city council, it's one of the things that I emphasized is, effectively, this is a voluntary tax. People need to know what we're doing, how we're spending the money, and I just don't think with no budget, it's tough to do that.
Commissioner Robin, did you have a comment?
I wanted to add some of the elements for the subcommittee update and building on what others have said. What we went through with Ariana's help was to do some modest achievements for the picnic. And those modest achievements are in response to this handful of needs that collectively we're talking about. Part of it is money and access to designated funds. Other aspects of that are, how do we get permission to use images that already exist and that are used elsewhere by the city? How do we get permissions to do that? How do we maneuver through the mechanisms of whether or not Dan can go to Kinko's? Does Kinko's exist? FedEx. Can Dan go to FedEx, spend $20 of his own money to build foam core boards and not be allowed a reimbursement because that's outside of the approved process for the city? So the maneuvering necessary for that, and I think as important as anything, is identifying who is among the professionals for the city, if not with the city council as well, who is it that helps us work through those processes so we don't have to ask each time we need to do something, but instead know what the toolkit is available to us, just as we need available funds to do it without asking for permission every time, in order to act on the process that we're all focusing on, which is outreach and explaining to the community and giving feedback of what and why we're doing things. Sorry for the long speech, but there's these threads that we were able to work through this time. It would be great not to have to do that again the next time someone has a good idea.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with everything that's being said here. We had this discussion 2.5 years ago, and when Dr. Reddy was here, and it was explained to us that we were not allowed to use Measure J funds for any kind of advertising or marketing dollars. So if we need advertising or marketing dollars, we have to get it from the city, separate from Measure J funds. Christy Holsage said that she would help us do that. And I will volunteer to follow up with her to see and tell her about our discussion today and say, look, this is what we're talking about. Everybody agrees that this is a problem. It's been a problem for years. The city council members all agree. So what can we do? And how much can they come up with? And then again, like you said, let's not have to go back to them every time we want to do something. Get a budget, just like everybody has a budget, right? And say, okay, this is the money we have, and then we decide as a group how we want to spend it. Mostly the communications group would tell us how to spend it, but we would just vote on it after that. So I will take that as. mine.
And do we have any idea of what, go ahead, Commissioner Gray?
Yeah, I'm on the communication subcommittee as well, but I hear what Commissioner Johnson said, that we were told, you can't use this money, but City Council can make whatever decision they want to make. And there really isn't any law that says we can't use tax dollars to promote this any more than I would build a building and never have a marketing budget in my budget. So I think what we need to do is certainly on next month's agenda, request a communication marketing budget of some sort. We talked about putting out a flyer to every citizen in the city, and we got a figure from Amy about that, how much that would cost. So, I think we do need that. And if City Council decides, yes, it's appropriate to take it out of Measure J funds, then they would give us a line item for that. So we just have to figure this out, whatever this particular line item is that's already there, what that means. If that can't be used for flyers or brochures or a web update or whatever we need to do, then we just ask for a budget of whatever it should be. And $1,000 a year is probably what I would say is a minimum, and maybe we need up to $5,000 if we're going to do some sort of a mailer to the city. But we can make a recommendation, and then it's up to the City Council whether they want to use Measure J funds or they want to find the funds from some other source. But we should be able to try to make that request at least.
And I
Commissioner
would like
Dixon.
to do an update on the on the subcommittee. We've met a couple of times, and we've had stops and starts along the way for the last few years. But we finally targeted something that was feasible for the picnic, and there will be some kind of event at the fire station. So we, at last, with Ariana's help, and it wouldn't have happened without you, we have materials for the first time and a plan going forward. So I think we have a really good committee now, and thank you very much to Ariana. And at least we can start to communicate what Measure J has done.
My only suggestion on the materials, I think they're fabulous, but I think they always need, for more information, and here's the website address.
This is a 3-day project
I
in
know,
between
yeah,
everything else.
Yeah, but if that line could just be added, I don't know if it can be, but it's okay.
You can always make modifications
Yeah,
and
it's,
change it.
yeah, I mean, I just think, people need to know where to go, and it's on the website, so it's
With
just
a little more
thing.
time, we
Yeah,
can use
yeah.
different paper. That's what I mentioned. Our turnaround time is probably between a week and a half up to 3-4 weeks, depending on the project.
Yeah.
So
But I'm just
more than 3
thinking,
days is
I'm just
needed.
thinking, for the fire station or anything in the coming up, I would just like to see a line added for more information with the website link.
I will bring a black magic marker to the picnic.
Well, we're definitely off to a good start, and we'll definitely put this on for a repeated issue for next April. Commissioner Johnson, you can talk to Christie and see what realistically, budget-wise, they can allot for us.
I think what she'll ask me is, what do we think we need?
And it all depends on what we want to do. And I think a mailer specifically for Measure J, in my opinion, is a big ticket item. You're looking at least $8,000 to do a mailer to all residents. So that's a lot of money for one mailer. And I think we need to work smarter, and I think we brought this up in the last meeting, where we can work and communicate through 1PS. We can communicate through Denise, who sends out to residents every week. We can tag along on David Reddy's email that he sends out to all the citizens.
The next door.
It's not on next, well, we can do next door as well, but David sends out an email, I'm on the list, and I think other people are, and there can be, he sends out an update.
The problem, you have to be.
Right, and I realize that, but a mailer, to me, that's a lot of money for something that people might look at, and then it's in the recycling bin.
I don't think we're gonna, sorry,
Yeah.
make a decision on all the things now, but it does seem when you're talking, this would be an $8 million decision next week, that of the city's money basically, that to spend $5,000 or $10,000 to let people know what that's going towards doesn't seem outrageous to me. It seems minimal, and it seems worth it to ensure the continuance of Measure J funds coming.
1% of the tax.
Right.
I mean, most places, a 1% out of the budget is what seems to me to be feasible. And as much as I love all these ideas with the internet, I go back to the fact that when this measure was trying to be passed, the city did mail out something to all voters. And that is the only way everyone gets something. You can put it in the paper, you can do everything you want, but yes, and maybe they'll throw it away, but at least it was in their hands.
Commissioner Soto?
I just want to highlight, we are going to be talking to residents on Saturday, so I think this is a great time to get feedback from residents themselves to help guide us to see how they want to receive information. So maybe that can be a priority in our asks.
Excellent point. Yeah, good, and it will give us a roadmap. Okay. I just wanted to quickly, I don't know if we needed to formally invite the Parks and Recreation Commission to our April meeting. There was some conversation a few months, I think, before this new commission started, and is that something that we do through you, Ariana, to invite them? We've got them as our next community project. If the $1 million doesn't go automatically to the downtown park, which it might, but we wanted to, get input from Parks and Rec on where they would like to see money spent. And I know that they are still working on finalizing kind of their priorities, but I just didn't know the communication route on that.
I can do an invitation to them, or I know in the past, I believe it's come from the chair or from the committee where they reach out to them and invite them over.
Okay, and I can
So
definitely do that. And just get I'll find out who the chair is and go ahead and contact and reach out. So.
I can
No
let
problem.
you know who the chair is, and I can email you the information if you like, and
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
and let me know.
Yeah, no, and I can handle it. That's fine.
All right. I just want to, on the Parks and Rec, first we need to let them know that we're talking the earliest 2021, so they're aware of that.
And
And
who
the
I've
other-
talked to is aware of that.
Right, that they're aware of that. And number two is, Ariana, help us with the process. Historically, we haven't really, we've invited people in, but each person only got 3 minutes. It wasn't
Correct.
like the Parks and Rec come in and do a presentation for 20 minutes. They would bring 10 people, each got 3 minutes. Is that the only way we can do it? Is that
No,
why
we
we've
can
always
put
done
it on
that
the
way?
agenda as an item and put it as a presentation.
Okay, all right, so I think that would be a better way to go.
Presentation from that commission.
Right, instead of doing that 3-minute thing.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was assuming that was what it was.
But it was the way we do things, so.
Commissioner Lass.
I think one of the things that would be helpful for me as part of that, say, they did the presentation, is kind of their priorities over that time period, to really give us an idea how that dovetails with our list.
Correct, yeah. And I will reach out to them, and they may be at the picnic as well.
Jim, maybe instead of inviting the whole commission, the library subcommittee went to the Board of Trustees and sort of had a meeting with them and sort of said, how do you want to proceed? And maybe our park subcommittee should go to their meeting, ask to go to their meeting and get some input. And then it's 2 or 3 people dealing with them rather than 10 people coming to our meeting and not really knowing. And then you can begin the discussion with them in a formalized way. I kind of feel like this is kind of a little backwards, so that, I think it's good for us to kind of go to them and say, look, we may have funds for you in 2021 or 22. What are your priorities and so forth? And then they can all together discuss it and bring us a report rather than having them come and just some big discussion.
Yep, that's fine, and there's at least 3 of us on that committee, so I'll look at their dates. I had talked to, I don't think it was their chair a while back, and that was presented too, and I kind of had that in the back of my head, but I've been so busy to go to their meeting and kind of overhear their conversation on it. So, and I was only intending on really inviting the chair,
but
not the whole commission.
If you make a formal request, then it goes on their agenda, and it becomes a bit more of a formalized process. And I think that makes it better, because then all of their commission members hear it, they know what's going on, and it's not you talking to somebody on the side because you happen to know who the chairperson is or somebody on the commission. I just think that it makes it a little bit cleaner if we actually do that process that way.
Yep, that makes sense. Okay.
I agree with David. It's scary.
And it'll make our meeting shorter, too.
All right.
All right. Public comment. I don't see anyone here, so we're good. Any staff member comments? Okay. Any commissioner comments from Commissioner Soto?
This is my self-interest as a new commissioner, and I don't know if you'll agree, but especially for the prioritization for next month, just as much time as possible, I definitely want to look over that as thoroughly as I can.
Yeah, we'll take that. Yeah, absolutely. We have the list pretty much already complete.
That'd be
So
great.
we'll add the 2. I'll ask Marcus and anyone else that has input on this, and we'll try to get it out next week if possible, or the week after maybe.
Okay, great.
Commissioner Gray.
Yeah, if the members of the library subcommittee could just meet with me for 1 or 2 moments after the meeting, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. This adjourns the Measure J Commission for March 21st. Thank you. Oh, do we have a motion to adjourn? Thank you. Okay, a second? All right, all in favor? We're out. Thank you.